We'll call the March 25th, 2019 regular meeting of Peters Township Council to order. Mr. Lauer, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Merrill?
Present.
Mr. Steigel? Present. Mr. Arcuri?
Here.
Mr. Kozer?
Here.
Mr. Berquist?
Here.
Mr. Ball?
Present.
Mr. Lewis?
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes of the March 11th, 2019 regular meeting.
Move they be approved. Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is special reports, of which there are none. So we move on to the audience comments section of the meeting. At this time, any member of the audience who wishes to speak on a non-agenda item can do so for up to 5 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak? Let's come forward, sir. Please tell us your name and your address, sir.
Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Diskowski, D-Z-I-K-O-W-S-K-I. I live at 141 Woods Lane. Across the way from me was approximately 6 to 7 acres, and construction started 2.5, 3 years ago. The address there is 140 Woods Lane. I've had everything from the retention pond not being drained. They dug the pond overflowed. Ed was there. Flooded my property. I had a head wall built. They put a piece of plywood over the discharge of the pipe. The pipe overflowed onto my property. Ed was there.
Who's that?
It's called, it's the Ward property, but it's Policastro Construction. So now, every time Ed don't even return my calls no more. He just does not acknowledge my emails or my pictures I send him or my phone calls. But now my problem is they raised the road. It's a private road and there's a right-of-way between the two roads. They raised the road approximately 1 foot to 3 feet, and it's sloped to my property. I've contacted the DEP. I have a report here. They're in violation. I've contacted the Washington County Conservancy. They put everything on the township. They said that the township has the power to shut that job down, to make all these things right. I'm at wit's end here. I don't know what else to do. So that's why I'm here.
Okay.
And every time I contact Ed, I have retaliation. I've had boulders put on the road. I've had drywall screws thrown in my driveway. I've had roofing nails in my driveway.
What are they building?
They're building a home and a large barn, large garage.
Just the end of Woods
Ed's
Lane.
not retaliating.
No, Ed's not, but every time.
I just wanted to make that clear.
Not yet, anyways.
What's going on? What's up, Ed?
We've been out there multiple times, Mr. Zemais and I. The contractor, the owners of the property got all their necessary permits from the township and the conservation district and DEP. We've had multiple issues. We've been out there solving problems throughout this entire project, and if this is a new problem, we will go out and check it out.
But I want to be clear, though, with regard to this road, this is a private road, and if there's a problem with that road, it's not an issue that we can solve. It's an issue between two property owners who share ownership interest in that road. It's not the township. So if the problem is right now that road, we're not going to be able to help with that.
Is that the problem, the road?
Well, there's several problems. There's water discharging off the front of the property that Paul Lauer was out there and said he was going to take care of it. Supposed to put retention fence up and silt fence. There's no kind of retention.
And I did go out, and the the Washington County Conservation District did go out and do an inspection, and the controls that are in place are what's on their plan. And it is the Washington County.
No controls there.
Let me finish. It is the Washington County Conservation District that permits for soil and erosion control, and they are the body that has enforcement ability, not the township. It's not our permit. So.
Well, is it screwed up there? I mean.
Well, according to the Washington County Conservation District, what's in place are when they last inspected it was in fact what was permitted. So
It's a
But is
difficult.
the permit significantly, is it permanent and appropriate?
yes.
Should they be taking other measures?
What needs to happen out there is it needs to be planted and there needs to be grass on that site is what needs to happen to be able to resolve the problem. That's not going to happen until the weather breaks.
Well, and it's a difficult site, too, I know, because I can see it looking out of my front window. Essentially, what they had to do was cut the whole 7 acres down from the top of the hill in order
Yes.
to build a going pad, and he's not accessing the house from what I understand from Woods Lane, right? The house is going to be accessed from Sycamore.
Correct.
So the Woods Lane access is only for his barn, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Now, I strongly disagree. They're in violation of several things, so I can...
Can you give that to
Sure.
Mr. Lauer? We'll look at it.
I emailed him a copy a month
You have a
ago.
copy? Has Mark seen it?
And the original print, they're not following the original print where the road is. If you know the property, if you know where that house is at, when you came in that driveway, another driveway should have shot where the current house is to their barn. They bypassed and went around it. That's not on the print.
You're talking about the house they're going to demolish?
Yeah, the driveway should have went through that house, once that house comes down, but they're going around the house now. That's not on their original plan.
Well, that may be something they adjust once they tear the house down.
Yeah, but in the meantime, what they put in is raised 3 feet, and my property is discharging right onto my property. There's no drainage. There's nothing there to catch the water.
Do you know whether or not any of these people responded to this letter? Because it looks like the DEP gave them until March 15th to provide a timeline and specifics as to how they were going to accomplish all these violations.
As of today, I spoke to Elena Evans with the DEP. They did not.
I mean, certainly it's a problem if they've regraded the road to turn the water on his property. The problem is, though, since it's a private road, I don't know what we can do about it.
And what I do not have a problem doing is to get the Conservation District out there and meet with the Conservation District. I don't have any problem with that at all.
No, don't they have to follow the original plan that the township approved?
Well, the township did not approve the erosion and sedimentation control plan.
The road that was supposed to come in the original plan that I had the prints.
It'll eventually get there. They have to take the house down to put the driveway in.
So in the meantime, they can do whatever they want and discharge it onto my property?
Well, they can't do that.
No, they
Certainly
can't.
can get an
That's what they're
attorney-
doing.
Certainly can get an attorney. The problem we have, sir, is it's a private road. If it were a public road, certainly we could do something about it.
Yeah, I mean, the
Problem
water
we have
from there is going into my backyard now. Ed's been there. He's seen it. Him and Marcus and Mary's walked through the backyard, my backyard.
Right, and we understand that. I mean, unfortunately, because it's a private road, our hands are tied, and we can't go in onto a private road and tell anybody to fix the road because we don't have any rights in it.
So you're going to have to go to take,
Well, the private road is actually not the issue. There's a 10-foot right-of-way. We both own part of the road.
Right.
It's their property. They stopped. They put their own special road in.
your conflict though is with the builder and the person building the house. Since you're on a private road, you've got to deal with them first.
I've tried.
Well, I believe some of the township people have agreed to go back out and maybe at the next meeting, get a summary report as to what the condition
Well,
is.
let me
How close
see
is the house to
yeah.
being finished?
They've been on it for almost 3 years now. I have.
Yeah,
It should be done this year.
The problem is not the private road. It's what they did to the property. They created their own road.
But let us do this.
I'm confused with
I will
the
get
issue.
I will get a hold of the Conservation District, and if need be, DEP, and we'll go back out and visit the site.
So what they've done is they've essentially even got a cliff here.
Okay.
Yeah, the private road is not the issue. That is clear. It's what they did up to that private road. If this is the road, they got a wall right here with boulders and nails and rocks and you name it's in it.
And at this point, it hasn't been seeded, so it's all still dirt, right?
Well, it's boulders and 2B gravel. It can't be seeded.
No, I'm talking about the hillside, though, the actual hillside.
Yeah,
And they put some
there's
of
not
that-
even geotextile material or silt fencing there. Nothing to stop the discharge of water coming down.
Okay. Well, we're not going to solve it tonight.
No, I'm sure.
You know, I would maybe go back to the Washington County Conservation.
I've been in constant.
Because it says there's a failure here to do something.
I talked to Matt Golden 100 times. He puts it back on the township. He says the township has the power to stop that.
You have to tell them that we don't.
I have several times. And
Don't or won't, huh?
No, it's not a question of won't. I believe that permit for soil and erosion control is issued by Washington County Conservation District, and they have an obligation to enforce it.
He says all they do is document. He said it's up
And
up
I'm
to
going to
them.
disagree with that from this standpoint, though I don't know much about many things perhaps, but I do understand about the Conservation District because my wife used to be the director of the Allegheny County Conservation District. I know what the responsibility is with regard to this, and they have enforcement abilities.
Well, we wouldn't have any basis to enforce it anyway because they're not our regulations.
Yes. So give us a chance, and I will get the Conservation District out, and if need be, DEP will go out and I'll take a look. But the last time we did this, the controls that were in place were what, in fact, were on the permit. But we'll go back out and visit it again.
Yeah, there is no controls to control the flow of water at that house that's going to come down 141%. There's nothing there. And there hasn't been for the last...
Well, can you try to schedule it?
Yes, I will do that.
I don't want to forego it.
Yeah. Try to have an update for the next
Pardon me?
meeting, okay?
We're sorry for your problems. It
Yes,
sounds like it's
I've been
a
dealing
bad
with this for
situation.
2.5 years. It's just, I'm at what's end here.
Thanks
All
for
right,
coming in.
well, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak? Okay, moving on to unfinished business, of which there is none. Before we begin in new business, let's acknowledge the high school girls basketball team for their undefeated season and their state championship. We'll certainly invite them here at some point. Obviously, we'll make sure not to do it for the next meeting because, as Mr. Berquist reminded us, the next meeting is on the night of the NCAA men's final. So we want to make sure that we do not invite them for that evening to conflict with any plans that they may have and Mr. Berquist has for that evening. So, moving on.
Well, it is a basketball night, maybe that would be the time.
No, maybe. But then you're not going to get out of here.
Unless we can live stream it here on.
There you go.
Okay, next item is appointment to the Peters Township Cable Television Board.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Mark McFadden for appointment to the Cable TV Board for a term to expire 2020.
Second. And I believe his last name is McFarland.
I'm sorry, did I say, I thought I
You said
said
McFadden.
McFarland, sorry.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next.
Before you press on,
Yes,
Mr.
Ms. Monroe.
Kozer, Council had the opportunity to interview a high school student candidate who also expressed interest. And while we don't have a full position to offer her, we agreed that we might like to appoint her as a student representative to the EQB. Again, she wouldn't be a full member.
cable television.
Excuse me, cable. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over my words tonight. To the Cable TV Board, and that would be Natalia Hillen. If council would concur, we would like to make that.
Are there any issues in doing that, Paul?
I mean, she would in essence be a representative to the, that's attending the board, that she wouldn't be able to take action on any.
I don't even know if they vote on anything.
I was going to say, but that was going to be my next follow-up, is that isn't, a board that has many things that they're taking action on, formal action on.
Well, we just thought that the student's perspective would be something that would be a good thing.
Yeah, it's a big part of their program.
Okay. So do we need a motion to do that?
You don't necessarily. I mean, I think you can do it by consensus. You're not really appointing somebody officially to the board.
Then we would like to invite her to do that.
Yes.
I think that's a consensus.
I think so.
Disagree?
We agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Thank
let's
you.
send her an invitation. Next item is acceptance of the resignation of Kate Vozar from the Environmental Quality Board.
I'll make a motion that we accept the resignation with regrets.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is approval of Hamlet and Springdale Plan Number 5, final plan, second amendment, as shown on drawings prepared by Windridge Engineering dated February 2019.
What you're looking at is a simple subdivision in which a property line is being moved about 25 feet in one direction. It's been reviewed by the Planning Commission and been recommended for approval.
I move we approve the Hamlet and Springdale Plan Number 5, second amendment as shown on the Windridge drawings.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
I abstain.
601, Mr. Lauer. Next item is approval for recording purposes of the Joseph and Debra Lisanti subdivision plan as shown on drawings prepared by Keystone Surveying and Mapping dated January 24th, 2019.
So this is a piece of property that's located off of Turkeyfoot Road. There are currently two separate parcels. It's what they're asking to do is to subdivide that into three separate parcels, each of which is large in size. One of the things about this that is a little bit unique is there is this existing driveway that actually goes up to this Federal Aviation site. It's serviced that way. They're going to use that as a shared driveway between these two pieces of property.
Is the access going to be on, is it going to be a flag lot like that? Or what's that little part that goes up?
Well, that's just a little part of the lot that has frontage on Sagewood Drive.
Is that going to be used for ingress and egress?
Potentially.
Maybe. I don't think they've figured that out yet. So it's either coming this way or it would be coming on this shared driveway.
Is that driveway on there? They own that property? The driveway's on?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the FAA just has an easement across it then?
Yeah.
Has a right of way, yes.
And did this go to planning? And I assume they had no problem with it?
Planning Commission reviewed it at their February 13th meeting and recommended council approve it subject to Peters Creek Sanitary Authority approval and approval of the planning modules.
Move we approve the, for recording purposes, the Joseph and Debra Lisanti subdivision as shown on drawings prepared by Keystone Surveying.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Nay. Oh. Sorry.
You can vote nay,
No,
it doesn't matter.
I was an aye.
Okay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer.
We're all confused.
Rough day for everybody. Seriously, good thing we got a short agenda tonight. Now, next item is resolution amending Peters Township Act 537 sewage facility plan so as to provide access to sewage services for the Joseph and Debra Lisanti subdivision plan 1.
So to be able to develop this, they need access to sewage. For them to be able to get that, we have to amend the Act 537 plan. This has been reviewed by Peters Creek Sanitary Authority as well as a lot of other people, and I recommend approval of this amendment.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is acceptance of a dedicated right-of-way and authorization for the appropriated township officials to execute a deed.
So we spoke about this on the township tour on Saturday. The township previously has accepted the dedication of Windermere Court. What we did not accept at that time was this small tract here that is intended to provide access to Simmons Farm if and when it develops, and as of right now there is no immediate plans to do that. One of the things that's changed in the last couple of years as a result of a directive from Washington County, when we take these, we accept these dedications, we now get a deed of dedication. What Mr. Zook was able to do is go back to the developer and get a deed, not only for this property, but also for all of this property. So there's a resolution accepting the dedication of this, and then council needs to authorize the appropriate officials to execute the deed.
I move we accept the dedicated right-of-way and authorize the appropriate officials to execute the deed.
I have a question, if I could just ask. That cul-de-sac there, is that permanent?
Yes.
Well, yeah. This cul-de-sac is permanent, but it's temporary in the sense that there's a road that connects them.
There's no road. It's
Yes.
just a right-of-way right now.
We saw that on the road tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you'd been there.
is now, is that extra portion there, is that part bonded so that if, well, who's going to pay to like pave that?
Whoever develops some.
Well, I was going to say, what will happen is when this, the adjacent property develops, and what we always do is we require that developer to
Okay,
actually.
I just want to make sure we're not paying for it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Not yet.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Before we move on to the next thing, Mr. Lauer, I was thinking about when we went on that road tour and we saw that cul-de-sac in its current condition. We need to be careful where we have these right-of-ways that we're not accepting. We have to make sure that we're doing this within 21 years because, as John knows, we'll lose the right forever if we don't accept these right-of-ways within 21 years. And the other issue is, once we accept them, we have to go around and make sure that none of the neighboring property owners are making uses of them because, as we all know, after 21 years, even if we accept the dedication, let's say the neighbor puts a shed on it or something of that nature, after 21 years, they get adverse possession title because under Pennsylvania law, only lands titled in the state government are protected from adverse possession. For us, for local governments, they have to be actually used for a public purpose, and the mere acceptance of the dedication is insufficient to protect us because we're not actually putting it to a public use until we actually put the road in. So that's my long-winded way of saying that when we're accepting these dedications, if we find out that the neighboring property owners are making uses of those areas, we need to send them some form of letter giving them permission or something of that nature so that we're not allowing an adverse possession claim, because it doesn't do us any good to take these right-of-ways if the neighbors are going to usurp them and we end up not being able to use them.
You don't
anyway.
have to stop them from using it per se, just let them know that it's not theirs.
Yeah, there's a fence, isn't it, on our property, on the right-of-way?
Fence and driveway, yeah.
But are you? Yes, and there's a fence and there's also a driveway that's located there. But can I just following up with what you're saying, are you saying that even if we grant them permission and it's not used for public use in 21 years?
No, if we grant them permission, we're fine.
Then it's not adverse.
Right, because then it's not,
Okay.
right, it's not adverse because we're giving them permission. So I'm certainly not advocating that we go out and, search every right-of-way we've got and tell everyone that has an improvement in these right-of-ways to take down their sheds or take out their play sets or whatever. Just give them permission, because as long as we give them permission, then we're protected, right?
And one of the things we were talking then about, on the tour is that we've changed how we do this, and this situation would not exist going forward. One of the things that Mr. Zuka is going to be doing is researching how many others like this are out there, so that in fact we don't find ourselves.
I think in the past, the township just wouldn't take by deed unless they brought it up to the road standards, right? We didn't want to take the property, but now in these situations, we decided it's probably best to take it by deed and take it now.
So at the end of the day, then, Mr. Kozer's recommending we send letters to the property owners on either side. For
Right,
these
saying you have
particular
our
circumstances.
right, saying you have our permission to continue your use.
But be forewarned that at some point it may not.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, we have some years to do that, but.
Well, for some of them we do. I mean, this is from, we're almost at 21 years here, which is why we need to get on that.
Yes.
Is there any way to do that so that we can put that in the actual ordinance? And then
I don't think you can.
You don't think you can do it that way?
I don't think you can do it by ordinance. I think because it's an individual.
I wonder if we could do it by posting.
But again, I'm not concerned about it because you'll never see this situation again. If we were to do this today.
Yeah, but do we have these in the past? Do we still have?
Well, and that's what we're going to find out for you. But
Oh, and that was the issue we
Yes.
had with Juniper Woods, right? Because there was a right of way off of off of Marble Drive, right? That we couldn't use because we let the 21 years go
Yes.
by.
But the other point of that is to be proactive, because I think the construction of the particular amenities wouldn't have occurred that way if people were really aware that there would be a road that might be extended. I mean, some of that construction is potentially going to have to be changed.
yes.
Well, Frank, how's that any different than, I remember years ago, and I know this is before you being in concert, and I can't remember which plan it was, but we had the people that encroached into the common area, or into the township.
Open space.
Yeah, the open space.
Raphael Drive, wasn't it?
I don't remember. I remember the guy had a pool, and then somebody else had a shed, and we had to flip the one property. I mean, how do we protect ourselves against that then?
Yeah, but I would think in that case, it would have been used for public purpose because the open space is just that.
Public purpose.
Yes.
Well,
That is the
you can
public
make the
purpose.
same argument here.
Well,
You can make the same argument there too, right?
Yeah, the public purpose here is to be able to get from here to here on a car. So.
Well, I would disagree with you on that, Paul. I don't think the mere fact that it's open space dedicates it to a public use. I mean, now if we put a park in it, that's a public use. Just having title to a piece of property that's called open space.
I don't agree with you.
I'd be curious about that.
So I mean, how's that any different than this? I mean, we're gonna have to go to all these people who border.
That's why I actually, and that would be interesting for the solicitor to research, I would assume the fact that you're taking land and the public purpose that you're putting to is the preservation of open space for the benefit of the residents. That's a public use. It is no different than a park. A park, just because you have a park doesn't mean all of the park is developed. Some of it is left wooded for the enjoyment of people. Peters Lake Park, for a large portion of that, is just left as woods.
Right, but it's well.
We're not going to resolve it here.
We're not going to have an appellate court argument this evening. I just remember from my research, it actually has to be an active use, not a passive use, in order for you to be protected. But that's something to research some other time.
Can we call a question?
We did.
Okay. Next item is
Yeah. I don't think we voted on it.
We did.
You did.
Yeah.
You in fact seconded that motion.
You did. Okay, next item is award of a bid for the renovation of the library restrooms.
So this project, there's an allocation of $50,000 within our capital improvement program to refurbish the first floor restrooms in the library. As you can see from my memo, it's a fairly comprehensive interior rehab of those facilities. We opened bids on March 15th, the apparent low bidder being Graham Construction at $49,900. Previously, they were known primarily as an excavating contractor, but they just hired a project manager who specializes in interior renovations. He's done some pretty substantial public sector work in the past, City of Pittsburgh, Clarion University. So it's my recommendation that we award the bid to Graham Construction for the refurbishment of the library restrooms.
I'll make a motion that we make that award for renovation of the library restrooms to Graham Construction for the amount of $49,900.
I'll second. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Jaworski was kind enough to go over the scope of work because to me it was very important that we do everything at one time rather than going twice. And he did assure me that everything was covered. And the only other question was related to scheduling. If they're going to try to get that done in a compressed time frame.
Their hope is to start around April 15th. The project would last 6 weeks. So.
You'll coordinate that with Mrs. Lisanti.
Oh, yes. She's going to be at the pre-construction meeting this week.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is award of a bid for the HVAC and light improvements in municipal buildings.
Okay, so this is actually two separate projects that were bid out as one, both in this building. The first one involves the replacement of the boiler that is about 20 years old. The second one, I don't know if anyone's aware, we tend to have some heating and cooling issues in this room. If you were here before the meeting, you were in a sweat locker. So the project involves replacement of the rooftop unit that services this room, some duct work. The ceiling's going to be lowered by about 8 inches, and that's actually going to not only accommodate the ductwork, but it's going to allow us to replace the lighting units in this room and hopefully get some better, hopefully you don't get the shadows that you get now. There was an alternate bid we took as well that also involved replacement of these lighting fixtures around this bulkhead. Currently, replacing these fixtures, replacing the lights in these fixtures is incredibly difficult for Public Works. They actually have to have someone climb up into this bulkhead and replace them. That's probably why you see a few of them that are out right now and that haven't been replaced, because we're short staff, I suppose. So that was an alternate bid. The low bidder for this project, we opened bids also on March 15th. It was a big day for us. The low bidder was East West Manufacturing. They have a history of actually they did our last major HVAC upgrade in this building back in 2013. Very happy with their work at that time. And especially in speaking with Joe and in speaking with Jeff Wilmot, who used to maintain the lighting fixtures in this room, it was our recommendation that we also accept the alternate bid as well on this project. So the budget in the capital improvement program is $175,000. The total bid for both the base A, base B, and the alternate is $155,200 to East West Construction.
I'll make a motion to approve the bid submitted by East West Manufacturing at a price of $155,200.
Motion and second. Any further discussion?
Seems like a wide variance in the bids. Normally, we're not this far, not much of a spread.
I've seen it on other projects. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's always a consequence of other work that a contractor may have or may not have at the time they submit the bid. So, you'll see it on the roofing bids when we show you those at the meeting on April 8th.
I had two questions, Mr. Jarosky. For the boiler, are we putting in an energy efficient one? Did we specify?
It's a cast iron boiler. They did look at an energy efficient boiler for this building. They couldn't make it work given the space constraints in the existing room down there. And I will tell you that the maintenance staff that we've had that have worked on the energy efficient boilers that we have in the library, have had some issues with them. So.
The second question, you talked about the ceiling being lowered, and I just wondered, as part of the light package, will they handle the movement of the projectors and the other audiovisual? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is recognition of the Peters Township Model Train Club as an official Parks and Recreation program.
So the Peters Township Model Train Club was actually a program that was started by Dave Stanton, who was the DARE officer. And when he was in that capacity and worked with that club, it was in essence part of the township. He's retired since then. He continues working with the kids with this program, and in terms of liability and also bringing them into compliance with our standards for background checks and things like this, I think it's important that they be recognized as an official club.
Need a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is payroll and bills.
Have reviewed the payroll and bills, find them in order, and move they be approved.
I'll second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is correspondence. Anything we need to discuss under correspondence, Mr. Lauer?
Just the only thing is you have an invitation from Dominic DeFranco to the annual Memorial Day Parade. So if you're interested in attending, you need to let Mr. DeFranco know.
Next item is the reports. Any member of council have any comments or questions about any of the reports?
I'd just like to ask Mr. Jarosky again about the tennis fees. You talked about them being down, I think, in your financial report.
Yes.
Do we know what that's attributed to?
They've had some issues with the HVAC system for the bubble, but I don't think that's enough to account for the entire reduction. I don't know offhand other than that, though.
Well, we had agreed to take that on as a township entity, providing that they continue to cover their expenses, and I just think we need to keep an eye on that.
I agree.
Thank you.
Any other member of council have any comments on the reports? I see we have anything under miscellaneous this evening, Mr. Lauer?
Nope.
Okay.
I had a question, Mr. Lauer. Where are we with the ambulance authority meeting?
I've been trying to set this up, and I have not had any luck at this point. I will attempt before the next meeting to try to get a date set for that. It is not for having failing to talk to Mr. MacArthur, and he's actually been always welcoming, receptive on the phone. I just can't get a date. So let me see what we can do.
When do we disperse the money to them?
Not until we have these meetings. So,
That's what I was going to say.
yes.
Yeah, they haven't
Yes.
gone here.
Well, that's an incentive. Thank you.
I received an email today from a resident who says that Keystone is attempting to collect back wage taxes from him and his wife for 2016, even though they didn't move into the township until 2017.
Yeah, and I haven't had a chance to speak to this individual, but I can tell you exactly what has happened. He has filed his tax return because I've done this on numerous occasions. He's filed his tax return with the state of Pennsylvania in 2017. You're asked for a 6-digit code for the school district that you live in. Even though he filed a 2016 tax return and he lives somewhere else, he put down the Peters Township code. I will guarantee it. And as a result of that, when they do that audit, because when they get the state tax information, they compare that to make a determination where they live.
Well, he owes somebody then.
Yeah, and generally it's been paid, and you know what happens in a lot of these is, and people don't understand this, if you move in the middle of a year, you have an obligation to file 2 earned income tax returns, and most people don't do that either, and so this is not unique. It's not unique. And what you're seeing right now is Keystone Collection is out based upon tax information from 2016. They have several thousand letters out in Washington County, and some of those are in Peters. So,
One other thing, Mr. Chairman, if I could ask, and pick on Mr. Jarosky again. I won't give an update to the ad hoc recycling, but one of the things that did come out of the meeting I had with EQB is asking about the glass recycling, and we had talked about a company that would potentially bring in a collection bin. Have we had any headway with coming up with a date or any kind of memorandum of understanding or anything with them?
We have tentatively set up May 4th with them.
Okay, good. Thank
I
you.
was at the Shake
Still working on the MOU.
last Thursday, and glass recycling was one of the predominant topics.
Well, this is Merrill.
My first Shaycog meeting.
Since you mentioned it, Mrs. Merrill, you want to give us a brief synopsis on how the ad hoc committee is coming?
Well, what we were very gratified to have 15 residents respond to participate on the ad hoc committee. When I talked to the EQB, I met with them at their regular meeting, and they're more than willing to help engage everyone, because the thought is that rather than make it a specific 3-member or this or that there are a lot of issues that we can look at. So they're talking in terms of we're going to go ahead and look at glass, look at potentially other plastics, paper also. And so the plan is to invite this group of people to the next EQB and try to divide up and plan out how we're going to approach the topics.
Yeah, I'm glad we had such a big turnout.
It was a great
for that.
response. And I've contacted just about everybody, but one person's email is bouncing, so I'm going to have to call. So, but thank you for asking.
Thank you for agreeing to take it on. Is there anything that any member of council would like to see on the next agenda? Anybody else have anything for the good of the order?
I just have a question for Mr. Lauer. Are we done distributing the huge garbage cans? Because I've received a few complaints. Some people in my area and some people just in the township about how large those things are. And
All those who have received complaints, raise your hand.
we have finished distributing them, yes.
But I would think, well, the only other option was like a 45-gallon one, which
Yes.
I think would probably be too small. So.
Yes, and again, I had a conversation with a few people. Mr. Grummings had a conversation with many more.
I'm sure.
But I'm quite honest with you, though, in terms of people who have called in and complained or offered suggestions, that number is only like 30 30 people that have called in. There's 8,000 containers out there, so I think it's actually been fairly well received. The other thing that we know, and I've explained this to people, is that we didn't pick the size container just out of thin air. You know, this program of automated collection is well established in the North Hills, and one of the things that they'll all tell you is this size containers works with this program. And so, you know, I think for most people, we have chosen the right container. We do have some people, particularly elderly people, who with disabilities, and as of today, I think we've worked out solutions for 14 or 15 of those people who have called in that will allow them to be able to continue their garbage service. And
Yeah, I think most people like the larger containers.
I'm not saying that they don't, I'm just saying.
Even though the donut
I've
ladies
had
at
several
Debbie-
complaints about, you know, the size of them, you know? And I mean, I can understand if you were, you know, if you're living in the house, it's just, you know, you and your husband, you might only generate a little bag, well, you can't leave it in there, you know, because it's food. I mean, it'll start not smelling very well. So, you know, they gotta lug that thing up there.
No, they wheel
maybe
that.
they could just ask the neighbor, can I put this one bag in yours, since, you know, they're huge, and you can just.
but you can wheel it up there. You don't have to lug it.
Wow, still
Well,
kind of awkward.
part of the problem with the cans is not only moving them, but where do you put them? A lot of people are saying, you know, they used to stick them in the garage. They used to have their own cans they put in the garage. These are bigger. You can't, you know, everybody drives SUVs now. It's, you know, people are running out of space. And I'll, you know, again say that we'll be seeing them in front of some of these lovely new homes.
Well, the one thing I will say about them is they are very pizza box friendly.
Oh, yeah.
You can fit your
Give it
pizza
that.
box in there without any trouble.
I was trying to say that the donut ladies at the Abbey Coffee House after Mass were bringing me to task for the size.
There you go.
Anybody else have anything? We have an executive session. We do not? No. Okay, meeting adjourned.